None. I welcome all of you to this month's series of this month's edition of NKATA series. Patrick and I really go way back. You know, like we say, the only thing we don't share is Awele and Lena. And we've not figured out how to do that. So, okay. I'm very happy to be here today to share our story with all of us. It's one of those things you do and you don't even know how you started it, but you just realize that you start doing it and it seems like it's working. You go through ups and downs, but when you plot your trajectory, you see some sort of, positive trend. I think that's the only way I can describe our journey. Early this year, when I agreed with Patrick and Nana to open NKATA 2020 and speak on Akuluno, building a startup nation, I had a slightly diminished impression of the scope of the topic until early this week when I started putting down what I believe will be a meaningful discussion with the audience. The past 11 years has been packed for us. Our story is an aggregate of the different experiences and lessons we've gained, with each one of them substantial enough to stand alone as a topic for this session. Quite frankly, my presentation could have focused on any of the following areas and still get the audience sufficiently excited. We could discuss a chronicle of the entrepreneurship journey of the Igbos, starting a new business during a global recession. Recall the global recession of 2008? That was when we started. Starting a new business with zero equity or debt investment. How to discover, attract, and retain the best talents in a market where such talents are limited, and the established players, including the banks, the oil and gas firms, and the blue chip companies with deep pockets are obviously more attractive to potential hires. How to create enough excitement for exceptional talent in a not so vibrant town like Enugu versus Lagos, which is our economic capital. How to build in less than 10 years a business group with significant interest in information technology, real estate, fast-moving consumer products, entertainment, oil and gas engineering services, and manufacturing. How we established operations in 3 locations in Nigeria and 5 countries in just about 10 years. How we built a highly motivated team of a little under 400 people, with every single one of them keenly committed to the vision. How we built Genesis Tech Hub, which was adjudged by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshibajo, when he visited the hub, as the biggest he has seen in the country, and have trained 1,800 tech enthusiasts, supported over 300 startups, and incubated and funded 8 tech startups. While we launched from Enugu, concentrated most of our innovation assets and key strategic capabilities in Enugu, while still maintaining a world-class corporate culture and professionalism, which has earned us several global, regional, and national awards for excellence. The joy, challenges, and lessons learned from our journey so far. Undoubtedly, the 20-25 minutes presentation, we're going to have this evening will only allow me highlight what I'll consider, the broad strokes of our experience and journey. The people and economy of the Southeast. In the beginning, before the first white men docked ships at our shores, before they signed treaties with the Obas in Lagos and the Emirs in the north, before Frederick Lugard amalgamated the northern and southern protectorates, the Igbos were known for their resilience, entrepreneurial spirit, and sojourning abilities. When the colonial masters introduced formal education, Ndị Igbo had the shortest end of the stick. The white men experienced difficulties in setting up a structured government in the southern part of Nigeria. This in turn made it difficult to provide the sweet parts of civilization, which are essentially education and enlightenment. While indirect rule worked in the north and west because of the hegemonies that existed before, it could not work down south because the Igbos had a more republican society and did not believe in centralized leadership. It became surprising that in the 1950s, the Igbos had superseded our brothers in other regions in the educational ranking. The late Chinua Achebe pointed out in his groundbreaking novel, There Was a Country, that at the time of independence, Ndi Igbo had the highest number of people with formal education, the highest number of people in government management, the highest number of professionals in the country. Our success as Ndi Igbo was not limited to education and government, but also in business and entrepreneurship. Ndi Igbo have always had excellent acumen in business, trade, and commerce. This flair for entrepreneurship expressed itself in the largely successful and genuinely wealthy businesses and businessmen that originated from Ali Igbo. We had the likes of Sir Louis Odumegwu Ojukwu, who was acclaimed as the wealthiest businessman in West Africa in his time. In the era of independence, Nigeria operated a regional government structure. We had a northern, eastern, and western regional governments. Each regional government had its premier and development strategy. The sense of identity was regional. Each government wanted to see its region outperform other regions in all the metrics of economic development. Governments invested heavily in agriculture as each region had agricultural produce for which they were known. The North was known for groundnut production, the West for cocoa production, and the East for palm production. The proceeds from agriculture funded educational and infrastructural development. This regional structure that heavily encouraged an organic and sustainable growth model was characterized by healthy rivalry, shared identities, and collective vision of the various regions. The Igbo economy, like most economies around the world, started as a local phenomenon. Local trade served the commercial interests of contiguous communities and dealt principally on food items, as well as other locally produced items. The economy was organized in three major sectors: agricultural, non-agricultural, and trade sectors. All these sectors prospered in the pre-colonial period, taking care of the needs of the people at the local, village group, and regional levels. The non-agricultural sector involved several local industries and crafts, which included pottery, salt making, smoldering, sleeping mat making, sculpture, wine tapping, cloth weaving, fish smoking, and amongst others. These industries flourished in Igbo land in the pre-colonial era, even part of the colonial period. The ingenuity of the Igbo people and the manner in which they worked and controlled the economy was striking and always captured the attention of strangers. Even colonialists were charmed by the charisma of the Igbo people. For instance, Hugh Crow, a renowned English ship captain, made the following statement: "The Igbos are well-formed people of middle stature. Many of their women are remarkably symmetrical in shape." Okwa. So, remarkably symmetrical in shape, and if white, would in Europe be deemed beautiful. Indeed, our women are beautiful. This race is of a more mild and engaging disposition than the other tribes. They are preferred in the West India colonies for their fidelity and utility, particularly if taken there when young, as they then become the most industrious of the tribes in the colonies. The economic development of Eastern Nigeria was palpable to such extent that the region was reported as the fastest growing and industrializing economy in the world, ahead of countries like Malaysia, Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore. Underlying the Eastern Nigeria plan and strides was a people with a traditional worldview worth a second mention. Their leadership and ecosystem perpetuated such powerfully transforming virtues as Akalaka, Nkanozo, Ogugu, Uchu, Ebuchukwu, Imuolu, Akonuche, Ofo, Akoru, Uguna Nsọpụrụ, Ngozi, Ikwu na Ibe, Igwebuike, Mmaduka, Mmaduka eji aka, Akuruo ụnọ. Interestingly, many of these virtues are the same shared by many startup nations like Israel, Malaysia, and Singapore. And I think that explains a lot about the success attained by those countries. Post-Civil War Igbo economy. At the end of the Civil War, Igbo land was smitten with abject poverty. It was visible and prevalent across every part of the East. The conditions which Biafrans fought the war, the heavy support given to the Nigerian federal government by foreign powers made the Biafrans go through the worst experience throughout the war. Also, the total blockade of the Biafran territory was of grave consequences to the people and consequently unleashed poverty, hunger, untold hardship on the people. In addition to the loss of businesses and properties, many Igbo people were permanently removed from government services. There was a kind of conspiracy to forestall the economic emancipation of the Igbos deliberately. For instance, the idea of 20 pounds policy introduced by the federal government of Nigeria further compounded the agonies of the post-war era for the Igbo. The policy entailed that all Igbos who had deposits in banks were given a paltry 20 pounds, irrespective of the amount they deposited. This policy played a very devastating role in the post-war economy of Igbo. It made it difficult for people to start businesses of their own since they had no capital. Another policy was the Nigerian Enterprise Promotion Decree of 1972, also known as the Indigenization Decree. The decree allowed Nigerians to acquire stakes in some choice blue chip companies. The timing of this policy was just after the Civil War and ensured that the Igbo people were not able to participate since they were left with their meager 20 pounds. The people were left with nothing except their God-given talent, and they did utilize it. Young men began to render services and learn trades from financially established ones. The reality of this period further entrenched the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, a venture development scheme that has captured the attention of scholars globally. The people struggled hard to better their economic condition rather than bemoaning their pitiable economic plight. It was these efforts that enabled the Igbo people to cope with the difficulties of the post-war era. A majority of families had at least one person in the apprenticeship program. It didn't take long before the benefits began to show. Families began to gain support, especially after the settlement of their young apprentice. This concept, the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, which started to gain prominence after the war, is today acclaimed as the largest incubator network in the world. As a matter of fact, Harvard actually did an interesting study on the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, and they said that no venture program like that has brought out a lot of people out of poverty like the Igbo apprenticeship scheme. The concept of the Igbo apprenticeship scheme, a great spirit of solidarity, Igwebike, thrived among the Igbo people. Honestly, no human would experience such hardship and not develop substantive empathy for his neighbor. This resulted in the formation of various clubs and town unions whose ultimate aim was to uplift their people. A migrating nation. The Igbo people had a history of migration even before the Civil War. This migration involved productive interaction with other groups and continued even after 1970. Even though they faced resentment as a result of their seemingly monopolization of certain trades, the Igbo people exhibited highly integrative strategies which helped them coexist with other ethnic groups. The industrial dynamism of the Igbo people is not organized with a limited outlook, but involved a widely developed network of different ethnic groups, traders from other parts of Africa, and even as far away as East Asia. All these are done without the assistance of the state. All students of history can testify that the commercial development of southeastern Nigeria occurred with the little dependence on state structures or ethnographic considerations. It was economics, not ethnicity, trade, not rulers, which governed the main lines of the region's pre-colonial past. The Igbo Diaspora Network created a network of Igbo inhabitants in nearly every corner of Nigeria. In 1911, 291 Igbo people were enumerated in Lagos. This figure has risen to about 32,000 by 1953. About 167,000 Igbos were already living in northern Nigeria by the 1950s. The Igbo people obviously became the southern ethnic group with the highest population in the northern region. During this same period, the Igbo people also showed a significant presence in cities like Ibadan, Zaria, Lafia, Maiduguri, Gusau, Kafanchan, and Makurdi. The records of the 1953 census revealed that 15% of the Igbo population lived outside Igbo land. Thus, the Igbo people became the largest migrant group in Nigeria. It is interesting to note that 5 prominent Igbo political figures of the 1950s and 1960s were all either born or raised in northern Nigeria. In Kanu, for example, the area called Sabongeri became a replica of Onitsha in today's Anambra State. Also in Kaduna South, a place called Television Garage was like an Igbo city. This also applied to other cities across Nigeria. They took advantage of the opportunity and established their business empires all over Nigeria. The Enugu Road of Kaduna State was like an extension of southeastern Nigeria due to the concentration of the Igbos in that area. It is interesting, however, that the Igbo pattern of migration did not rupture the linkages between migrants and their homes. There were traditional institutions that ensured that migrants kept touch by observing annual returns to their communities. An Igbo man is not truly regarded to have acquired wealth if his kinsmen cannot testify to the impact of his wealth at home, which we know as Akulono. Many diaspora associations of Igbo people widely adopted this ideology and would always have the phrase, "Remember home," featured in their mantra. Consequently, many Igbo communities have in their calendar at least one tradition that obligates all members of the community to return home once in a year. This same ideology also drives the mass return of Igbos from all parts of the world during August meetings and Christmas celebrations. This migrating pattern of trade was also a strategy for checking oversupply of local markets, as newly settled apprentices were encouraged to go to distant locations to establish their trade. Traditional Igbo values as a blueprint for community building. The traditional Igbo community is built on values that determine behaviors, considered as legitimate or illegitimate. The Igbo values emphasize community building. Therefore, we have prominent Igbo ideologies like Akulono, Umunna Nwezuako, Igbambo, Igwebike, Nwanne de Namba, Onyaga na Nwanne ya, Nwanne Bike, to mention but a few. These values in totality promote the Igbo spirit of self-help, self-enterprise, hard work, and excellence. They also promote a sense of reasonability, a sense of responsibility to community and comradeship, respect and care for one's relations and neighbors. Deviants are regarded as efulefu people who have no sense of responsibility, direction, and purpose in life. And nobody really wanted to be regarded as an efulefu. In recent years, these traditionally held values have experienced rapid declines. Unfortunately, this decline is evident in the pattern of lives of the new generation Igbos, and even reflects in our lexicon. Now we have words like Egombute, Igbozu, and Ibutike. So some of our friends go to my man's place, Odumeje, liquid metal. Ijebutike. Only time will tell. These words and the ideologies behind them are corrupt forms of the traditional Igbo values. They look like what our values represent, but they are not. This shift in cultural values can be attributed to the mass adulteration of Igbo value system, a misrepresentation of Igbo values, and in some cases, an outright adoption of values that were not originally of Igbo descent. We must not forget that a people who cannot stand for something will fall for anything. As a result of this value erosion, the Igbo people are widely perceived as unreliable, possessing high fraudulent tendencies, as a people that could do anything for money. The Igbo traditional values indeed uphold achievement and success, but it also emphasizes hard work and abhors crime and fraud. And the original Igbo man prides in his results born out of hard work, not fraud. People are rewarded and recognized in Igbo society for their accomplishments, which translates to a greater good for the whole society, not for selfish ambitions or ill-gotten wealth. Our people need to have a rethink. The corruption in values seems to reflect a people whose mindsets have gone beyond the pursuit of needs at the base of pyramid in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Struggling only to keep up with food to eat, clothes to wear, shelter over their heads, even when indeed they have attained enough success to move up the pyramid mentally. I mean, if you recall the Maslow's pyramid, where at the base of the pyramid, you have the basic needs of man, food, shelter, sex. And then it begins to go up. So it's expected that as people move on, they begin to seek more self-actualization values. But it seems like for our people, what happens is that, more money pushes for more money. And they are seeking to get that money so that they can eat more food, buy more cars, build more houses, oppress everybody around them, and not to use it to seek self-actualization, which is actually the realm when you begin to live for other people. Our values are the building blocks of our society. Therefore, we must strive to erect an Igbo society built with strong blocks of truth, trust, integrity, hard work, excellence, resilience, and self-belief. To think or do otherwise is to risk a total collapse of the Igbo nation. Second, we must make a conscious effort to invest in our communities. The second is actually intertwined with the first because the effect of the depletion of Igbo value system is the lack of sense of responsibility to build at home. So you become despondent. What am I going to build? What am I going home to build? It is well understood that business decisions must be driven by economic reward and not sentiments or emotions. But a more long-term perspective by Igbos investing and building the Southeast will eventually generate the needed critical mass to make the region economically viable. Those who conduct knowledge-based businesses such as information technology, products, services that require human capital should take the lead. So there are two ways to look at it. One way is to say, oh, nothing is happening in the Southeast, so I will not invest in the Southeast. The other way is to also say, nothing is happening in the Southeast, let's go and invest in the Southeast. And that essentially will build the critical mass to make the Southeast, economically viable. Our journey so far, the journey of Tenece. Tenece Professional Services Limited, our flagship business, was established in 2008. Our objective then was to build a world-class enterprise transformation and technology consulting services firm focused on using technology to support organizations, optimize their functions, and achieve their strategic objectives. From inception, we had an audacious vision of making our mark in the industry. So we set out to differentiate ourselves from the rest of the pack through excellent service quality and high professional disposition. I was quite lucky to have received excellent professional grooming from my consulting and professional services background. I was exposed to global best practices for talent development and management. My previous career experience offered me good insight on the importance of skill, knowledge, and objective performance management in building a successful enterprise, particularly in this century when data is the new gold. And the workforce comprises mostly of millennials and Generation Z, the demographic cohorts succeeding the millennials. Time will not permit me to delve into details of these very idealistic and pragmatic generations. But our parents will be very glad that they did not have to raise them. My mom would have preferred my simple ECK to the overwhelming sense of independence of this generation. I don't know if you know about the millennials and the Generation Z. Their sense of entitlement, their sense of independence, they argue everything. They have an idea of how they want it done. And they would have given our parents high blood pressure. I have a short story I would like to share. One of us, a very prominent son of this state, he called me sometime last year. And I went to see him in his house. So when I came, I saw him, Kingsley. I was almost at that point. In fact, on a police station. But what happened? This boy joined the Tennessee Genesis Hub program and turns out a fantastic guy. Arguably one of our best guys. In fact, after the program, he stayed back in Tennessee. But what really happened was that the father didn't understand how to deal with millennials because they are a completely different set of people. And by understanding them, understanding how to deal with them, you actually make the most out of them. So, they challenge everything, they loathe being regimented. So how do you bring about a corporate order and get such characters to align towards a shared vision or purpose? Very challenging. While my experiences prepared me adequately to be a professional, I wouldn't be quick to say that we were very completely prepared for what lay ahead. However, by evolving and sticking to a set of core values that encapsulate our aspirations and some simple life principles that seek goodness, we have synthesized an unusual bond and culture that set us apart. We hope someday to be remembered for championing a benign variant of capitalism, conveying the Igbo philosophy of Onyaga na Nwanne. Our beginning was as simple as it can get. We had zero funding, no office space, no connection, no man knows anybody. All we had was faith, right people, vision, and some genuine contentment with our current situation while aspiring for a more glorious future. We started operations from the BQ of my residence in Lekki, Lagos at that time. That was where our first set of Lagos team resumed. I recall those early stages. Everything was like an experiment, very amorphous, without form. Besides the few technical hands we had then, every other person, including myself, was utility resource, functioning both as business development person, admin person, finance person, drivers, security man, everything. Everybody did everything. Everybody did everything. We focused on IT services. We focused on services, IT advisory and software development, since we lacked the deep pocket needed to play in the infrastructure space. We positioned to solve the mid-tier problems, the middle of the bell curve, where IT managers face steady diet of technology upgrades, application rollouts, and business problems that require resources beyond their own. The banks, telcos, oil and gas companies have a raging appetite for automation as they push for increased efficiency. So we gave those verticals proper attention. The ever-increasing demand for sophistication compelled us to grow our technical competence steadily. They essentially forced us to develop, steadily. They also maintained quite a decent annual IT budget, so they were really worth our time. The public sector and academia were attractive low-hanging fruits, but with almost zero IT budget. However, we leveraged them to build our managed services practice. So we had to evolve a different kind of strategy to address, the academia and the public sector, and it paid off for everybody. Homecoming. Professional services practice uses intellectual capital to create value. It is therefore quite resource intensive. Professional services organizations that thrive are those with the structure and means to attract, build, and retain quality talents. We realized quite early that deliberate talent planning is critical for our success. At its core, talent planning is an overarching strategy that encompasses how an organization plans for having the talent it needs in critical positions, both today and in future. The top 3 challenges firms face in acquiring talent include: 1, the availability of good candidates in the marketplace; 2, matching qualified candidates to open positions; and 3, aligning acquisition goals with the strategic objectives of the company. One of our first challenges was the high attrition rate of our technical resources. We were losing our skilled hands faster than we could replace them to banks and other industries with deeper pockets and more attractive remuneration. Lagos is a very sophisticated and highly competitive market. Skilled resources are quite expensive, very volatile, and rarely offer long-term commitments. We figured that we had to think differently to win the war for talent. The Southeast is the leading source of human capital that serves the Lagos market, probably after the Southwest. With over 40 tertiary institutions, the Southeast is home to an army of young people, very cosmopolitan, very self-aware population. So in reality, the biggest resource we have in the Southeast is not in any material resource, but actually in our people, our young people. Therefore, we paid a great deal of attention to developing our talent base in Enugu. We started hiring young talents and gave them the opportunity to grow and learn on the job. The result was tremendous, but attrition was still a big challenge. With the experience they gained, our young talents were always quick to jump to a better paying job from the telcos and other big corporations. This challenge made us delve deeper into how to tackle the lack of technology talent in Enugu and the Southeast as a whole. It was at this point that we began to nurture the idea of building a tech hub that will groom tech talent in the Southeast and also supply to other parts of the country. This is how Genesis Tech Hub started. Genesis Tech Hub, an idea, creativity, and knowledge-based platform, is a people and business capacity development initiative designed to drive innovation, productivity, and economic output in Nigeria. The hub, which is acclaimed the largest in the country, has so far through its initiatives harnessed young tech talents in the Southeast. In the past 5 years, we have been consciously building capacity by training young tech enthusiasts and supporting young entrepreneurs with tech-based business ideas. In this regard, we have graduated over 300 young software developers, trained over 1,800 tech enthusiasts, and funded 8 startups and supported over 145 SME. As a matter of fact, as of last year, we were giving minimum of $15,000 as early stage seed fund to the business ideas that we support. We don't just stop there. We also provide an office space for them and also provide them what they call incubation support, where we give them access to experienced hands who essentially handhold them in developing their business ideas. Presently, we have people from different parts of the world participating in activities of Genesis Tech Hub here in Enugu. For some of these people, it is their first time coming to this part of the world and experiencing the Igbo environment, people, and culture. Through this opportunity, they have been able to create their personal views about the Igbo people beyond the single stories and stereotypes. A typical example is a gentleman named Sadiq, a young undergraduate from Bauchi State, who was part of our 2019 internship program. Just like every other intern, Sadiq was awed by the experience at Genesis. But one thing stood out. According to Sadiq, the Igbo people are so nice and accommodating. I never thought I could trust any Igbo person until I came here. I have always perceived them in the wrong manner. Sadiq's story shows how far we can go in changing people's views about us by building our place and attracting them. There is no other better way of telling the undiluted version of our story as a people than getting people from other parts of our land to visit, giving them a first-hand experience of who we are and what we represent. Is Nasiru here? Is Nasiru in the hall? Nasiru, can you stand up and wave? So Nasiru is my colleague. Nasiru was in our Lagos office. Later he moved to our Abuja office. On his own, he said he wanted to come to the Enugu office. He's been in the Enugu office for like 2 years now. In fact, he's running a postgraduate program in UNEC. He's not planning to go back anywhere. He likes here. But I'm sure if he didn't come here, he possibly wouldn't have had the experience he has today about the Southeast. So, why not Enugu? At a time when my friend, myself, and my brother, Patrick, were conceiving Enugu Lifestyle and Gulf City project, we traveled around the world looking for partners that were going to come and do the project with us. We had very interesting experiences. I remember when we went to Dubai, we met his friend, I think Slim, that works for JLL. Good. So we went to Dubai to meet Slim, to pitch the idea of Slim coming, getting JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle, am I right? One of the biggest real estate development companies in America, to come and be our development partner in Enugu. So they took us to one of their sites in Dubai. On that site, they had moved the crane to the 40th floor. When you're building, they have moved the crane. So it gives you an idea of how high they were still going. So we changed our discussion and told him we came to get ideas. We respected ourselves. But an interesting thing, which is why I shared that story, those days when we told people we are coming to do a project like this in Enugu, and I'm talking about Igbos, they will say, why Enugu? And Patrick will always say, why not Enugu? And, we realize that when you give them that, counter question, you throw them back. So the next part of my discussion, I titled it, why not Enugu? Why won't businesses come to Enugu? What is it about Enugu or Southeast? Enugu here I will use interchangeably with Southeast. And I have some facts. One, unlimited access to young, brilliant talent. We leased an office space in Victoria Island, Lagos, barely a year after we started operations. However, we had no compelling need to set up our Lagos office because we set up our primary operations in Enugu. It eventually took us over 2 years to get our Lagos office fully functional. Unlimited access to trainable human capital was critical to our success, and Enugu offered this core asset in abundance. 2, novelty. For all of us at Tenece Group, including non-Igbos and even foreigners. By the way, 2 years ago, we had our end-of-year retreat in Enugu. So our colleagues from all over the world were here. We're all in Enugu. I wish we had the slides. I was going to show you pictures of people from Ethiopia, people from India, from Kenya, from all parts of the world, assembled here in Enugu. We were at Nike Lake, and the people who were in Nike Lake at that period knew something was happening. Those guys left with their own impression of Enugu and the Southeast. Thank you. So for all of us at Tenece, including non-Igbos, even foreigners, and even foreigners, setting up in Enugu goes beyond a strategic business decision. It is consistent with our quest for novelty, which is one of our core values. In all we do, we seek to be original. We don't follow the crowd. We love to do things differently. In dealing with tasks and responsibilities, we seek new courses of action by thinking outside the box. We crave and encourage creativity and believe that it is possible. We think this positive disposition energizes our people and propels us to undertake heavy liftings that seemed impossible and unusual. In our 11 years of existence, we have undertaken projects and endeavors that will easily break the back of most organizations our size and age. 3, alternative role models for value change. In the course of working and spending considerable time in Enugu, we have gained a lot of insight into some socio-cultural alterations that are occurring in Southeast. Our future will be better secured if substantial effort is dedicated to value realignment, even if we pursue economic emancipation. Social or cultural norms and values are an essential part of our society because they develop our personalities. Norms determine what is right and wrong in the eyes of others, what behaviors are shunned and discouraged, and what the consequences for good and bad behaviors are. Establishing and adhering to them will frame us to be useful persons in our society. Ignoring them will taint our culture and degrade our society. What we are doing at Tenece transcends building a business in Enugu. We are grooming a generation of young men and women that will be responsible, skilled, enterprising, fun-loving, and morally sound. The mass immigration of most of our decent and best minds to other cities and countries that offer better opportunities depletes the Southeast of the much-needed role models, exposing our young population to the disempowering dominance resulting from wrong values. Virtues such as trust, patience, diligence, tolerance, love for one another, and honesty have all been replaced by treachery, betrayal, hate, greed, intolerance, and dissatisfaction. Most of our young population will do the absurd to make quick money. Fraud has become so commonplace that 419 or Yahoo Yahoo is considered acceptable career in some quarters. Those who think fraud too extreme to aspire join politics. New terms like egombute, like I said before, recently entered our lexicon, indicating how deeply the damaging norms and values have permeated our society. A young population with such impaired ideologies cannot deliver the Southeast of the future. So we must all work consciously to create a new set of role models that will influence our young population positively. Of all the things we do at Tenece, I find my greatest joy in the set of values and culture we have established. My colleagues are proper and very driven. They understand that there is no shortcut to success. We have all grown to find so much fun in the work we do. We deliberately created for ourselves an office environment that allows work and social life exist as a pair, so work becomes fun. We work hard and we party hard too. And I promise you, we play hard, we enjoy ourselves. No one in my team will find 419 attractive, none. Our senior colleagues attend compulsory education training programs in the best business schools in the world, including Harvard, INSEAD, London Business School, and MIT. They have all become positive influences and role models in our society. What we are building is actually a global organization, even though we have a local flavor to it. 4, sustainable development. An economic development model that concentrates key development capabilities in a particular city or state is not sustainable. Lagos is caving in under the weight of its vast population. According to UN statistics for 2016, there is an influx of 87 people per hour daily into Lagos. That gives you like 1 million people every year. And this is the largest in the world. This trend has given rise to a lot of socioeconomic challenges that successive governments of Lagos State have been battling to contain. Lagos Bureau of Statistics has projected 35 million people by 2020. This will be a disaster of monumental proportion. This trend is not peculiar to Lagos. At the turn of the millennium, and for the first time in human history, about half of the world's population began to live not just in cities, but in megacities. A megacity, by definition, is a continuous urbanized area with population of at least 10 million people, according to UN. In this league of cities are cities like Tokyo, New York City, Mexico, Mumbai, Sao Paulo, Delhi, Shanghai, and Los Angeles. The largest cities appear to have been growing at the most rapid rate, a phenomenon which has given rise to a concept of urban primacy, the demographic, economic, and social and political dominance of one city over all others within an urban system. This is what Lagos has become. Initially, we were worried about how the banks and the telcos and the oil companies were taking our people. But last year, we encountered a different challenge. Tertiary institutions from Europe. Last year alone, we lost 2 of our best hands to 2 universities in Germany. They got full scholarship. I had to tell him, dude, it's your problem. I can't help you, But the reality is that I told him that this is something we've agreed is our plight. But the good thing is that we have built a solid base, a solid pipeline that will continue to churn out a lot of skills, a lot of young people that will replace the ones that are going. But the truth is that it's very challenging, and it's a real challenge. So we responded to this by establishing scholarship schemes in most tertiary institutions in the Southeast. At the time we started, we had scholarship schemes running in almost all the tertiary institutions in the Southeast, established by Tenece. Most of our colleagues today are beneficiaries of our scholarship program. The Genesis Tech Hub is also part of our response to the resource challenge. Our internship program, codenamed Learnable, is the only paid internship program that I know of. So we are training people and we are paying them as we train them. We pay the young crew as we train them. We provide residencies for those without accommodation in Enugu. We provide shuttle buses to aid their logistics. They learn and work in the best environments that I know of in this part of the country, with state-of-the-art facilities like gymnasium, swimming pool, game room, etc. You know, the reality is that our people are indigent. If you say you are arranging or putting together a capacity building program, and you don't figure out how you will also accommodate those people that are going to be coming from my village in Obinofia, who may not have a place to stay in Enugu, who may not have transport to come to Enugu, then you would have excluded the people you really need to attend to. So we built a program that is accommodating everybody, even the very indigent. We have also encountered a lot of people problem. We've encountered people who are still on their journey of value realignment. People who are still at the base of Maslow's pyramid. Some of them come covered in priestly garments. Please be cautious. Don't be deceived. We have suffered huge disappointments and a lot of loss from such people. But we've also learned a lot of important lessons. The big elephant in the room is government. They can destroy all you have labored for in one meaningless move. I'm telling you the truth. To say that government is toxic would be to put it simply. Have you wondered why big long-term transformative projects don't work in the Southeast? Recall Obuaku City project. Geometric projects would have turned around the fortunes of the Southeast, but there are still all kinds of crazy battles around it. Eko Atlantic City has been on in Lagos since the early 2000s. It is still work in progress, preparing Lagos State for the future. It certainly would have been killed by government if it was anywhere in Southeast. I promise you. Dangote's Obajana cement factory and his new refinery in Lagos would have had a hard time surviving successive governments in the Southeast. My advice, please stay away from government if you can. Make sure you comply with all regulatory and statutory requirements. Don't start any project that cannot be completed within the tenure of the administration you started it with. All said, we have learned countless lessons, which I believe has spiced up our story and strengthened us. I'll recount a few of them here. Modern economy is blind to ethnicity. Skill, competence, and character matter. Our individualistic nature and personal drive, which appears to be our key discriminating competence in the past, is gradually becoming obsolete in the new global economic order. Partnerships and network, or what we call ecosystem models, work more today. Iko to Onye should give way to Igwebike. Top global corporations like Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, and I'll add Tenece, were all built on partnerships and collaborations. They were all built on partnerships and collaborations. We need to learn how to work with ourselves, with other people. That's how you get synergy and expand and multiply your capabilities. We must learn to work with others. We must begin to convey a disposition that will engender trust and make others feel comfortable with us. Investment decisions should not be emotional. Rewards and returns must also not always be pecuniary. We can also forget financial rewards and think long-term and think about building here and understand that eventually it will all add up and this place will also become viable. No one can build home except us. The Igbo traditional values are ideal for success in any sphere of life. Values like trust, integrity, and hard work. Hard work can never be replaced or in excess. Our human capital remains our greatest asset, not oil, not other natural resources, not political offices. We must work collectively to build our young people. What must be done? We must rethink our business focus. New business models are fast disintermediating us from our traditional areas of strength. I expect that in the next 5 years, or even less, shopping malls like the Palms, Polo Mall, Spa, etc., would have taken over 40 to 50%, if not more, of the transactions that happen in markets like Alaba, Ogbete, Idumata, etc. Besides Next Mall, I don't see any deliberate response from Igbos in commerce. Instead of building shopping plazas, which are essentially glorified open markets, our people should seek partnerships and invest in building real malls. Bearing in mind that our region may not be the most viable destination for most kinds of investments, government needs to be more accommodating and understand that businesses are their much needed partners in progress. We can do a little more with love for one another. There is so much self-hate. So much. Partnerships work more today. I encourage us to do things that encourage healthy competition because it promotes innovation. We need to create new role models with counter-narrative to the youth's helplessness and dependence on fraud and political offices. Rebuilding the Southeast is our responsibility. We must learn from the Jews who in 1948 began returning from different parts of the world to build a Jewish nation that has no defined boundaries at that time. It was a great sense of responsibility and spirit of nationhood that drove these people. There was nothing viable about Israel in 1948. Today, Israel is one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world with highly educated populace running a highly advanced free market system and operates primarily knowledge-based economy. So when we want to talk about Israel, it's not only when Nnamdi Kanu reminds us that we're also Jews. There are a lot of good things they do that we also need to learn from. Thank you very much.